Hi and welcome back to the Academy of Histograph Fencing and Hema at Home. I'm Nick Thomas, this is Esther Gibson, and we're now working through the Taylor 10 lessons. You just had lesson 1, we're now going to move on to lesson 2, which adds 50% more content. So you now have 6 actions instead of 4. And significantly with this exercise, there is an unusual exercise, part of the exercise, which is using counter time. And in this instance, what that means is that Esther is going to stay in a lunge position to take a parry, which is not the normal method for Roworth. The normal method would be slip or possibly stay and parry in your guard position, depending on which action you're doing. And this one, yeah, you stay in an extended lunge position following a feint. So that's a little bit unusual, and it's a way to set up the leg shot. So there's a good leg sniping technique for you. Now, staying in a lunge position should not be encouraged. It has to be used for very specific purposes, and you need to do it in a way that baits your opponent into doing what you want. Because if they do anything unpredictable, you're in an extended lunge position, you're weak, vulnerable, and slow to recover and get out of there. So you've got to set it up well and bait your opponent into doing exactly what you need them to do. Anyway, there's that caveat. So, this exercise, and Roworth loves cuts to the head and defenses to the head. So throughout these lessons, there's so much of cut to the head, defend your own, loads and loads of it. And that is not surprising, because when you're dealing with these kind of swords, there are going to be a lot of downright blows. Loads of sources at the time talk about untrained men. That's all they do, just powerful downright blows. So you're going to deal with a lot of them, and your head, of course, is one of the absolute vital things you need to protect. So not necessarily a bad idea to do lots of cuts to the head and defenses against them. Anyway, into guard position, making sure that we are in distance so that, again, Esther can strike on a lunge against my head. Start on the outside guard position, and rather than any explanation quite yet, I'm just going to show the drill in its complete form, and then we'll explain it a little bit more. Cut on my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Cut at my leg, defend your head. Recover. So there you just saw the whole sequence, and you saw what I was talking about with the staying in the lunge position from a feint. And what is happening there is Esther is throwing a feint to the leg, and it's shown, if you look in the Angelo posters, slightly leaning back like this. So we're kind of half committing to it whilst not risking our head too much from a timed hit straight down the centre. And then staying in that extended position and taking the parry here to then go straight back down to the leg, which they shouldn't have time to recover from. Now, because this is the partner drills, nobody's supposed to be getting hit, so I am able to get out of the way. This obviously is not a full speed representation of what's being done. It is the military line disciplined exercise. Right, so let's go through a little bit slower now and just see what's happening and explain it a little bit more. Always making sure this distance is good. If you're too far away, you're going to do things like come back to guard of St. George and the blade will just come down in front of you. That's not good. So make sure your distance is always good. So we'll do it nice and slow now. Cut on my head. Guard your own. Feint at my leg outside. So this is this action where Esther's done not really a fully committed lunge and is leaning a little bit out, but is threatening it enough that I have slipped out and are now primed to come back in with my head cut. Now, as I launch my cut to the head, the command will be defend your head, and Esther will stay in that lunge position and just use the guard of St. George from it. Defend your head. So this is quite an unusual position to see. Guard of St. George is always seen in a slip or shift position, which is where the feet are together. So this is quite unusual. But it does set her up perfectly, because we're quite close now, because we're both in a lunge position, even if it's not a full lunge, to then snipe the leg. So I won't move. You can see how it would work. She could just quickly snap down, cut the leg, and we would be back out, don't move. She'd be straight back out of there and out of danger and having slashed the leg. So from this position, I come back into my shift position and then cut at the head, defend your own. Recover. So it's not a particularly complex sequence at all. It just includes that unusual, uncharacteristic stay in the lunge position, stay in an extended lunge position. Normally that would be absolutely the wrong thing to do for this system. You would never stay at the end of a lunge and keep striking. So it is really unusual and uncharacteristic for the system. It's one of those exceptions to the rule that there always are. So it's quite interesting, and it's a good way to set up the leg cut. So let's see it again. Cut at my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Now, recover. Do that again. Cut at my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Cut at my leg, defend your head. Recover. So in that one there, you see Esther tried to slip back. That's of course programmed into us, so it's not so surprising that that happens. And it's not really a bad thing that you've programmed into your muscle memory to slip when somebody's coming in to strike, because that is the default automatic response in Roworth and Angelo's systems. So that's not too problematic. Mistakes happen. So let's do it again. Cut on my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Cut at my leg outside, defend your head. Recover. Once more. Cut at my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Cut at my leg outside, defend your head. Recover. So there you have it. There is the whole sequence from a partnered perspective. And now if I just get Esther to run through it from a solo perspective. Cut at my head, defend your own. Feint at my leg outside, defend your head. Cut at my leg outside, defend your head. Recover. Good. So there is how you can do it solo. It absolutely works solo. It's ideal at some point if you've got an opponent to see how it works with a partner, but you are still doing the same motions, the same exercises. You're just not making blade contact and you're not seeing how your opponent is responding. But being as you're watching this video, you are seeing how some opponent is going, and a typical opponent is going to respond. So there you go, you have a bit of context to that. Now, in terms of the commands, it's obviously intended that somebody read the commands to you from a sheet or from memory. As they get more complex, it's harder to remember from memory, but it will be done with a board typically. So I'd recommend that you write it up on a board. You could use chalkboard, whiteboard, scribble it on a bit of paper, or you could record yourself saying it, or take our recording from this video and put it on repeat. So if you wanted to do that, that would be an ideal way to do it as well, because you ideally do want somebody calling this out to you, because when this is done, it is done in lines. So we would line everybody up and tell one line that you are listening to the commands, whilst the other line is just responding as I've been doing in these videos. So that is lesson 2, which includes that counter time technique. So staying in the end of the lunge to get the leg. I do hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already.